I've always had very long, very wavy and very frizzy hair that my parents just never knew what to do with. When I was 7, my sister had just gotten her pin straight haircut and now sported a thick fringe with a short bob. As the little sister, I naturally had to do the same, so I took a pair of blunt scissors and a clump of hair in front of my face. I pulled it taut and chopped. When I released the hair, my curls sprang back up to reveal a fringe that fell a good inch above my eyebrows and stuck out in all different directions. My dad felt compelled to rescue my botched fringe job, so he grabbed his own pair of scissors, sat me down, and began to emulate his own haircut on my head. Now, I knew what my dad had done was really bad when my sister started introducing me to people as her brother, and they believed her. I felt like every ounce of femininity I had been taken from me. I was devastated. At 7 years old, I couldn't bear to look into a mirror because I could not recognise who I was. Without my long hair, I felt exposed and as though I had nothing to hide behind. I will never forget the sinking feeling in my stomach and swallowing the lump in my throat as I stared back at my reflection then with no more long hair and instead a choppy pixie cut. But I also remember walking out of the hairdresser with a smile on my face after having my hair cut just how I wanted it. This is the difference between voluntarily giving up your hair by choosing to cut it and having it taken from you. As a society, we have such strong emotional connections to our hair and deem it to be a pivotal part of our identity. There is a reason why we have hair loss clinics and growth serums and hair extensions. We associate so much of our confidence to our hair. We have created a booming business, that is the hair extension industry, valued to be almost $8 billion for when our hair no longer satisfies us. Hair extensions are small strips of hair that are clipped, glued, or sewn onto our natural hair that adds fullness and volume and length. This process was made extremely popular by celebrities who may dare repeat an outfit twice, could not be caught dead with the same hairstyle. This is the issue I want to discuss with you today. The market for hair extensions, which, while being legal, is entirely unregulated. It is where a product of the human body has become a commodity. With our growing societal demand for hair to fix our cosmetic desires, we want hair that looks, performs, and feels as close to the human product as possible. So we go directly to the source. Humans, regardless of what rights we violate to get there. Hair is such an intrinsic part of our identity. Your hair reflects who you are. That is why the removal of it is often used to dehumanize people. This idea is deep-rooted throughout history where, in many cultures, shaving the hair on men has been seen as a sign of subordination. It's why in ancient Greece, long hair was a symbol of social and economic power, and the shaved head was a sign of a slave. It's why shaving hair is done to soldiers who enter basic training. It removes their individuality. It's why shaving hair is done to prisoners upon incarceration. It emphasises their lack of control. It's why shaving hair without someone's permission is considered assault under Australian law. It's because it violates our autonomy, our privacy, and our sense of self. So, if a person hasn't voluntarily given up their hair, is it ethical to be making a market for it? Because that is exactly what we are doing. Let's look at the source of 70% of the world's hair, China. In the Xinjiang province of China, since 2017, over 1 million Muslims have been arbitrarily detained in concentration camps, where their hair is forcibly shaved upon arrival. With their only crime being a Muslim, men and women are lined up like cattle to be shorn like sheep. These people watch their beloved hair, their identity, fall to their feet in in clumps. In these concentration camps, we know of the forced labour, we know of the forced sterilisations, we know of the abuse, but now we know of these forced hair removals that takes away the last shred of humanity these people have, leaving them with truly nothing. Like I said before, shaving the hair of someone else without their permission is considered a crime under Australian law. So we can see that this is a problem, and yet 60% of the hair in Australian salons is imported, unregulated, from China. This is no longer a connection to human hair. We have commodified a part of the human body and we have not regulated it. Then there is the next biggest exporter of hair globally, Russia. The recent war in Ukraine has opened up easy manipulation and exploitation of innocent people. Ukrainian women and children are being captured, thrown 10 to a cellmate for 2, and are having their hair forcibly shaven, which, despite sanctions, has found its way into Western salons. The deputy director of the Moscow Centre for Prison Reform confirmed that across the country, correctional institutions saw a profit in the increasing demand for hair from the West and saw forcibly shaving hair to sell it. This hair supplies over 1,000 salons in the UK who, given they weren't required to account for the source of their hair, were happy to be oblivious until investigative journalists tracked down the source. This is a pivotal part of the issue with the trade. Buyers don't know or aren't required to know where the hair comes from. Our increasing demand for human hair, combined with this ignorance, has created a human rights disaster. There are few things more evil than turning the human body into a product. We have seen time and time again throughout history just how horrific people can become once they can earn wealth off of the mere existence of another person. It is one thing to imprison out of necessity. It is bad to imprison out of complacency. But once you can turn a profit off of that body, that is when the true evil starts. We must gauge how much of a benefit this hair actually provides us, considering its cost. While there are circumstances in which this hair is required and does provide tangible benefits, like the after effects of medical treatments or for medical conditions or cultural and religious practices. However, we are demanding this hair for frivolous and unnecessary cosmetic enhancement, and far too often when we do trace this hair back to its source, the answers are horrifying. In 2020, US Border Security seized its biggest import yet, 13 tonnes of hair products that was later revealed to have been swept off of the floors of Chinese prisons. The only way we are going to solve this human rights monstrosity is if we draw on similar successful tactics we have used to regulate other industries like coffee and cocoa, which have also stemmed from exploitation. Both of these industries have been built from unpaid and dangerous labour where there had previously been no legislative protection for people working in these markets. Fair trade set global minimum ages at which children can be employed in the coffee industry. The same was mirrored in the cocoa industry, where legislation was passed to remove children from cocoa fields and get them back into schools. Also, with the introduction of third-party certifying, these processes are regularly audited to ensure this legislation is being upheld, and so products can be certified to high ethical standards. They also ensure transparency of the supply chain through product tracking. Similar approaches of third-party auditing, product tracking, and certification can help make hair origins transparent. These approaches are not perfect, but they are an important first step and one that is desperately needed in the hair industry. Because there is nothing wrong when hair is freely donated or when a person makes a free, honest, and informed decision to give theirs up. But this needs to not just be an option, but a necessity. We are in a position of privilege in the West where we may be the highest consumers of this product, but also those most able to pay a bit more for their hair. We can afford to spend a little bit of extra money for the voluntarily traded hair to ensure that globally, the demand for the supply of forcibly removed hair is drastically reduced. However, I must reiterate, hair extensions are not a necessity. As a society, we must undergo a cultural shift because we cannot keep purchasing this hair frivolously now that we know its true cost. I was devastated when all my hair was cut off, but I got to choose when it was to be cut again after that. I waited 8 years before I chose to cut it again. It was a genuine fear I had for almost a decade. The fear of looking like a boy and feeling so insecure without my long hair gave me a taste of what it would be like to endure this process. But at least that was due to my own foolish choices, because having your hair forcibly removed can be just as damaging as any physical wound. We must take these steps towards regulating this industry using ways we know have worked before to ensure this no longer happens. Because the cost of a good hair day should never inflict suffering on someone else. And if we can't find a way to make hair extensions ethical, then this is simply a luxury we do not deserve. Thank you.